Canucks give up 5 unanswered goals and fall flat on the pond, losing 5-2 to the Anaheim Ducks. Lots of storylines, lots to get into. Let's break it down on Rink Wide Vancouver. This is Rink Wide Vancouver 5-2. Anaheim defeats the Vancouver Canucks, the dream of the SoCal sweep. Now it goes out the window. Remember that 2-0 lead the Vancouver Canucks had after a strong first period? Yeah, that is a distant memory now as the Ducks roll them with 5 straight. 5-2 is the final. The Canucks 1-3 now in their 4 games out of the Four Nations break. It's Rink Wide Vancouver. It's brought to you in part by Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Be sure to use code NATION when you open an account. The chat is hopping. The people are livid. Canucks won last night, but nobody cares about that because they gave it away. And in the process, invite all those teams that are around them, including the Ducks, into the mix in the chase for the final wild card spot in the NHL's Western Conference. If you have something that you want to get off your chest, we want to hear from you. Hit us up with the Super Chat. Our Super Chat charity partner this season, the BC Mental Health Foundation, changing the face of mental health and addiction by supporting breakthroughs in care, public understanding, research, and knowledge exchange. Irf, that was a tough one. Tough one, obviously, as a result for the Vancouver Canucks, but the process, we always hear about the process for the coaches. Process stunk as well. Second night in a row, a 2-0 lead. Like, you want to give them credit for getting out in front, but it's a 60-minute hockey game, and the Canucks basically shut her down, and no overtime heroics for the Vancouver Canucks in this one. They got what they deserved. They were the second best team on the ice.
Coaching wasn't good. Players weren't good. Not a lot to like if you're the Vancouver Canucks. Goaltending also not good. High glove not good. There was a lot of not good for 40 minutes in that hockey game from the Vancouver Canucks. And the problem with that in its totality, Jeff, is almost every night we sit here and say that about this hockey club. We're at the point now where fans are starting to lose confidence, if not already have lost confidence in this hockey team and what they're capable of doing. The chat is absolutely lit, as you alluded to, and it's one player. We'll get to him at some point here in the show. But
it's not just one player. That's the problem here. Well, I understand the ire of the fan base with one player. There were a bunch of players outside of Tyler Myers who played well in this hockey game for the Vancouver Canucks, and good on Tyler Myers, but you're not going very far as a hockey club if Tyler Myers at 35 is your best and most prominent player. And so, yes, it was another brutal night for Elias Pettersson. It wasn't a great night for Elias Pettersson. I can go on and on here. It wasn't a great night for a lot of guys in the Vancouver Canucks. So I understand the frustration, but it's almost like two silos here. There's the piling on Elias Pettersson, and then there's the team as a whole that hasn't scored a third-period goal since the Four Nations break. They've been in all these tight games. Irf, they've had a lead in the second period of all 4 games, a 2-0 lead in the last 2 nights, and all they have to show for it is an overtime win against the Los Angeles Kings. They did well to hang on and ultimately prevail in that one, but if they thought that they were going to get away shutting things down at 2-0 and the Ducks were going to go quietly, I don't know if the Canucks haven't been paying attention. I've been looking at the standings. The Ducks have 1 fewer win on the season than the Vancouver Canucks. The Ducks now have 26 wins. The Canucks have 27. Anaheim is 8-2-1 in its last 11 hockey games, and it looked the part. They were fast. They came at the Canucks with speed. Canucks had no idea how to defend off the rush in this hockey game.
And I think that was the biggest problem. They had no idea how to defend off the rush. And you look at some of their guys, the Tyler Myers and Derek Forbort, not good on one of the goals, and then also goaltending. Again, we talk so much about Shelovs and Lankinen just got his big money and signed here long term, but Arthur Shelovs wasn't very good in this hockey game. Canucks have now lost 26 games in a row when trailing after 2 periods dating back to last season. They have no fight in them. They can't come back in hockey games. There's no urgency. The Canucks haven't played with purpose since maybe the Toronto Maple Leafs game. And that's everyone. That's from head coach all the way down to the very last player on that roster. And it's not good enough. And the frustration is obviously there with the fan base. But at some point, when's the frustration going to be there in the locker room? When are these players going to come out and actually go out and preach what they say about needing to play better, about getting into different areas and doing all those types of things? Because they haven't even said any of this stuff either. And when they go out and they're playing, Jeff, like the games are really ugly to watch.
Well, we've got our first super chat of the night, Casey Shuffle. We appreciate your contributions throughout the season. Please keep them coming. We're going to do this through Game 82, and we'll see if there's some playoff hockey beyond that. But Casey Shuffle says, Nucks will never be able to acquire the talent required around Quinn Hughes. It's time to do what's right and let him play on a contender and rebuild. Quinn's not going anywhere at this trade deadline. Get to the summer. I'm certainly not a proponent of moving Quinn Hughes at this stage of the proceedings, but it does feel the way this season is getting away from the Canucks, just how low event, low scoring, quite frankly, boring the hockey club is. I don't know. I mean, I guess I'm bracing for the inevitable that he is going to walk as an unrestricted free agent in a couple of years' time. We're getting way ahead of ourselves here, but that just kind of sums up the frustration that you're seeing in the chat, that you're feeling online in social channels as well. Again, 2-0. This is a team that doesn't score many goals, and so to get a 2-0 lead for the second straight night, and then nothing the rest of the way in regulation time. Yes, Connor Garland scored last night, but really there was no... they got up 2-0. Niels Höglander had a breakaway at 2-zip. Kind of looked like Elias Pettersson the other night in Utah. Didn't hit the net. And you look back at turning points. If they get up 3-0, maybe the Ducks go quietly. Who knows? But they didn't. And then early in the second period, Besser sets up Pius Suter off the rush at 2-0. Again, good look, but the finish wasn't there. Quinn Hughes hit the crossbar at 2-1 just after the Ducks had gotten on the scoreboard. Again, if the Canucks had been able to extend their lead, get another one, maybe this game goes in a different direction, but it didn't. And really, if you're looking for turning points, how about that first Canucks power play that was just hot garbage?
Yeah.
Like, there's no other way to describe it. They were crashing into each other. Quinn Hughes, power play, it should be a sanctuary for a guy like Quinn Hughes. Should be untouchable on a power play. Instead, he's getting creamed into the boards repeatedly. They can't get the puck out of their own zone, trip it all over each other.
Everyone's just standing and watching Quinn Hughes.
And then the penalty expires, and, oh, look, here come the Ducks.
Yeah.
And instead of the Canucks taking advantage of the power play and getting back in front, it was the Ducks moments later that scored what turned out to be the game winner, the 3-2 goal by Strome late in that second period. And again, another goal that came off the rush. So another super chat, this one from Cole, hoping Hughes doesn't leave, but a major retool or rebuild is needed. It's almost 2 a.m. in Newfoundland right now, and I regret every second I just watched. No fight at all. Well, we thank you for hanging in there and joining us late night, early morning in Newfoundland on Rink Wide Vancouver. So shout out to Cole on the rock there. Props to you for, late night game against the Ducks. I probably would have shut it off once. I maybe would have made it through the second period. But
probably better off not even turning it on.
Yeah. As we said, 1-3 now since the Four Nations break. Overall, the Vancouver Canucks are 27, 21, and 11 on the season. The road record falls to 16, 11, and 4. Let's get to the 3 stars of this hockey game. 3 stars in the building. Clean sweep for the Ducks. Ryan Strome, Cutter Gauthier, and Frank Vetrano. Jacob, our producer, is going to be upset because he liked Cutter Gauthier, who scored one of the goals. He suggested might be one of the stars. I was like, nah, he was okay, but... I went really Ryan Strome, who ends up with 3 points, I think, a goal and 2 primary helpers. Troy Terry had a goal and 2 assists, and Mason McTavish is starting to come into his own. Obviously, this is expected. He was a high draft pick. He's a big body, and he's got skill. And he had 2 primary assists. He set up Strome, and then he dished to Lacombe off the rush. Again, how many times you can hear us say off the rush, but Mason McTavish with a couple of helpers. So I've got him as the 3rd star. Honorable mention to Tyler Myers, who has had an eventful road trip. My goodness, the too many men on the ice penalties that he was a big part of in Vegas. Puck over the glass, took the early penalty in Utah. And then here takes the delay of game penalty 1 minute and 7 seconds in. And, part of the storyline early, Irf, was, all right, Canucks penalty kill goes to work, put to the test. Ducks don't have a great power play, but still, you don't want to 67 seconds into a hockey game. You don't want to be behind the 8 ball, and the Canucks killed that off. And not only did they kill it off, Tyler Myers steps out of the penalty box, swoops down low in his own zone, and then is off to the right, races. Great pass from Drew O'Connor. And man, Myers didn't leave anything in the chamber there. Like that, he leaned into that slap shot. His 4th goal of the season, and he was just kind of getting warmed up on the night because he also picks up the primary assist on the Pia Suter goal that made it 2-0. But as we show on the live stream, Myers with the blast, the right shot coming down that right side, and he ripped it past Lucas Dostal. And again, the Vancouver Canucks opened the scoring 8th straight game, 11 of their last 12. They've opened the scoring in 8 straight, and this time they did build on it. And it's still not enough. So first goals of hockey games should mean something. Statistically, they generally do, but not with this group, at least not very often. And so, again, a 2-0 lead goes for naught as they give up 5 unanswered goals, and the Ducks skate away with a 5-2 victory. But just a thought on Tyler Myers and his night as a whole.
Well, it's the full Tyler Myers, as everyone likes to call him, chaos giraffe experience. Is exactly what that was. I mean, look, puck over the glass, and I think that shot registered at 88-point-something miles per hour according to the NHL stats. It looked like it was a lot harder than that. Beautiful shot there, and then he made that great play he was deking around everybody. Couldn't score for the assist on that goal there as well. Yeah, good for Tyler Myers, but as you said, at 30-something years old, 35 years old, He can't be your best player on the ice. He really can't.
He was involved heavily in the second goal as well, the Pia Suter goal that makes it 2-0. While Myers does most of the heavy lifting, I do want to take a moment here to single out Brock Besser with the rink-wide pass onto the stick. Did you hear that? A rink-wide pass onto the stick of Tyler Myers. Myers with a head fake on Troy Terry to create a little bit of space for himself, and then he ducks in behind the net. For whatever reason, Frank Vatrano looked like he had Pia Suter tied up in front of the net, and he kind of drifted, and Troy Terry chased the puck, and that allowed some space there, and Myers to the inside. And Pia Suter was able to convert for his 15th of the season. And at that point, 2-0, great start, back-to-back. Canucks get the jump on a Ducks team that was coming off an Eastern road trip, and maybe this was going to be one of those tough first games back. Ultimately, it's a lot of hockey. And it was the Ducks that squandered a 2-0 lead the other night in Buffalo, lost 3-2. Here it's the Canucks that get up 2-0, but that was it for the offense. We went through a few of the chances that the Canucks had, but they were few and far between. Philip Hedl, when it was 3-2 on the backhand, kind of cut to the middle of the ice. Quinn Hughes circled the net at one point and had a pretty good look from directly out in front of the net. But we keep such close tabs on the captain here, Irf, and he's had an incredible season. He's an amazing player. But not every night is going to be Quinn Hughes at his very best. And there are factors, obviously, second game back, playing back-to-back. He was on the ice for 4 of the 5 Anaheim goals.
Yep.
And that's notable only because he generally spends so much time up ice with the puck on his stick that teams aren't having that many scoring opportunities. Yeah, one of them was an empty netter. I get that. But he was on the ice for the first 2 goals. And really, when you look at the Frank Vatrano goal, like, man, did he whistle that one. And I do want to devote some time to Artur Silovs, but if I'm going to give Silovs a pass on any of the goals, like Frank
Vatrano goal,
he's scoring that on a lot of goalies. That was an absolute ripper. And when you look at the way that play unfolds, Troy Terry holds the puck and he gets back to, he takes it up top, and then he just kind of flings it on goal, and he's being watched pretty closely by Elias Pettersson. Rebound goes to the corner, and Strome just dives in there ahead of Quinn Hughes, and Strome and Vatrano play together, have some success. Look like they've got some chemistry there because Strome basically all in one motion just fishes that puck and puts it into the slot. Hronek hasn't quite slid over to close on Vatrano, and you give a guy like that an inch, he's going to take it. And that gave them some life, obviously. It got them on the board. We talked about Hughes hitting the crossbar moments later. But after that, it was 4 minutes later, and it was Cutter Gauthier. That was one, a wrist shot off left wing. DPD didn't play that particularly well. I didn't think that Lundestrom lugs the puck all the way up ice and allows Gauthier just to build this big head of steam. And DPD is the right side defenseman with Quinn Hughes, kind of shades to the middle for whatever reason, and as he tries to pivot, his body actually takes him, the momentum sort of to the middle of the ice, gives more space to Cutter Gauthier. But that's one that you need to save. Right there, that's a wrist shot. It's high glove side. It's a 2-1 hockey game. Canucks are sort of listing a little bit, taking on some water. That's where you need an NHL goaltender to bail you out. And as well as Artur Silovs played in Utah the other night, this was not a banner night for. This was not an arty party by any stretch of the imagination. And unfortunately, he's got one win in 8 decisions now. He's 1-6-1 this season at the National Hockey League level.
Yeah, and the goals, right? Where do they all go? Top glove. Yeah. Top glove, right? Except for the Vetrano one, like you said, he scored that. He has scored that on a lot of goalies and will continue because he's a hell of a hockey player. But all of the other ones, right? They're in that spot. And if that was the book on him and that was what the Ducks kept saying to do, they clearly did their homework because he wasn't good, didn't make the saves when he needed to. And you mentioned just one win in his last 8 starts. That also not very good. Okay, here's something we haven't talked about, or we did, but Quinn Hughes. Mm-hmm. You talked about him being on the ice for all four goals, 5, yeah. 4 or 5 goals against. The Canucks, without him, like, he's such a big part of their offense that it's like they almost don't know what to do when he's not on the ice or he's not playing well. And if Quinn Hughes isn't playing well and he's allowed to have bad games and things like that, there is no one on this team that can grab a game by its throat and take it over.
Right. Look, I'm not dumping on Quinn Hughes.
No, not at all.
It stands out because he excels so much, so often that when he has a night like this one, it's like we don't see that very often from Quinn Hughes. Ends up playing 22 minutes and 58 seconds, 4 shots on goal, 11 attempts. Again, he was making things happen and trying to make things happen.
But
he's not 100%. You can still see it. He just doesn't look like his dynamic self. And in saying that, he had 11 shot attempts. But it's just more about tilting the ice. And the fact that he was out there for 4 goals against, we're just not used to seeing him sort of defensively vulnerable the way that he was tonight. But this Ducks team speed was really impressive to me. And I think, the Canucks think they've gotten a little faster with the addition of Hedl and O'Connor. But when you realize, like, there are teams out there that can motor, and the Ducks are one of them. And the Ducks have, they've had a lot of high draft picks. They should be reaping the benefits of some of the young players they've got there. I thought Leo Carlsson early on, he had that one glorious chance that on the doorstep that Silovs did make a nice pad save. Gauthier scored. He also had a nice opportunity early in the hockey game coming down the left wing. We talked about Mason McTavish. Like Lucas Dostal is a very nice piece there that probably does make John Gibson expendable at some point. We'll see where things go there. But, look, this is a Ducks team that they're not going to be in the playoffs this year. But with this win tonight, like, they're not going quietly. They still have 2 more games against the Vancouver Canucks. And even though the Canucks lost, and it's a frustrating night, I get it. I understand that. I see it in the chat. The Canucks will remain above the playoff bar with 65 points. Calgary was shut out in Tampa. But Utah hung a 6-1 drubbing on the Minnesota Wild. St. Louis Blues were winners. They've won 3 in a row, and all of a sudden the Blues are within 3 of the Canucks. You've got Vancouver with 65 points. Calgary has 64. Utah's got 63. St. Louis has 62, and this Anaheim team that's not going anywhere, at least in the short term, they've got 59 points in their 58 games. So Anaheim's even got a game in hand on the Vancouver Canucks, and so do the Calgary Flames. So that's the way things stack up around that. It's getting crowded.
Yeah,
it's getting really crowded around that playoff bar. And as we continue to update, we're now down to 2 games until the trade deadline, right? Saturday and next Wednesday when the Canucks will see the Ducks. They're in Seattle on Saturday, and then they come home a couple of days, and they'll take on the Ducks next Wednesday. And then you get the trade deadline at noon our time on Friday, the 7th of March. So time is ticking towards the trade deadline, and for the Vancouver Canucks, their next game will be their 60th of the season. So very much into the stretch run now for the Vancouver Canucks, and just a lack of consistency, a lack of top-end production, and another night that the guy making the most money is completely invisible, totally ineffective, a non-factor at both ends of the ice. Like, it wasn't like he was caved in defensively, although the underlying numbers aren't great for Elias Pettersson. But again, we talked about 4 tight games out of the All-Star, out of this 4 Nations break. 4 tight games where anything, some sort of dynamic performance might be able to swing a result in the Canucks' favor and just nothing across the board.
Yeah, I'm going to get to James Hansen's super chat before, and then let's talk about Elias Pettersson. Why is coach not loading up the power play in the second, or does that mean third? No timeouts or game-changing shakeups. Feels like everyone's watching and waiting, including the head coach. Rick Tocchet doesn't call timeouts. Very rarely calls timeouts in hockey games. Maybe was there a time for in this game? Yeah. I'm not entirely sure what the thought process is there, and I think a lot of people would have to agree with that. Jeff, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think the coach is as frustrated as anybody, and he has to own some of this. He took the responsibility for the bad coaches change last night. This is a guy that had every button that he pushed worked for him last year, and he's proving fallible as well. But I think he's looking like, load up. What does that even mean? Like, who are you loading up with? And it can't possibly include EP40 right now. So if you're loading up, like, it's Quinn Hughes, it's Philip Hedl, I guess. Maybe Brock Besser, but it was another pretty quiet night, and it has been out of the break for Besser with a lot of going on. I understand that, but yeah, you got to be a pro. You got to play through it. And again, in these tight games, you want to believe that Brock Besser can be a difference maker. I thought one of Jake DeBrusk's quietest games of the season. He had the one chance on the power play set up by Suter in the third period, but he went into the third period with the Louis Eriksson completely empty stat line. Nothing, not a shot attempt, not a hit, not a block shot, not a takeaway, a giveaway, didn't take any faceoffs. We used to call that the Louis.
Poor Louis, just catching ricochets here.
Well,
I know.
I mean, he sort of set the bar awfully low in Vancouver. At the end of the night, DeBrusk had one shot on goal and one other attempt, and then, crickets across the board. So he's your leading scorer. Look who did the damage for the Duck Surf. Vetrano, his 18th of the year. Terry gets his 17th, the empty netter, but we talked about the fact that he had a real imprint on this hockey game. Their best players. Look, the Ducks don't have a ton of high-end, high-scoring guys, but the ones they do showed up and turned this game in their favor. And Canucks' best players, again, Tyler Myers was probably their best skater in this hockey game. Good for Tyler Myers. Big picture, not great for the Vancouver Canucks. And so, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I just feel like I've sort of reached a wall personally in critiquing Elias Pettersson. Like, it's just, there's nothing there. Full stop. And so I don't know where else you take the conversation, but there's still 23 games to go.
Well, that's just it. There's 23 games to go. There's no effort. I mean, you can almost tell the shots and him not shooting, you want to see from an explosive player who has shown it. He was there he had a 102-point season. It wasn't the media's fault back then when he was scoring all those points and dealing with us, the media. Look, even going back to Four Nations, it wasn't good. Players on Sweden. What's wrong with this guy? Where's the effort? Where is that Elias Pettersson? What has happened? What has been so bad for this player to completely evaporate when it comes to playing in a National Hockey League game? Well, it's happened.
Right. And so to bring this full circle back to the question that you asked, or that the viewer asked about loading up, like, we did this, I think, on Farhan on Saturday. So you were with me on Sunday.
Yeah.
And we came out of the Sunday game where they scored one goal, and they had scored one goal in each of those two games of the weekend. And you said, who are their three best forwards?
Yeah.
Right now, not based on career achievements and 102-point seasons. Right now, who are their three best, like, most dynamic, most influential, most promising forwards? And I struggle to come up with, that's where they are as a team right now. It's hard to come up with three. And maybe you say, well, Hedl's had some nice moments, and Connor Garland had the 2 goals last night. Look, Connor Garland had 2 goals last night. I thought he was terrible in this hockey game. He had a block shot. The block shot saved him from the Louis.
Yep.
So, yes, it was great that he showed up and was able to produce, but he went into the LA game with, I think, 1 point in the previous 8. So, not out of the woods at all in terms of consistency. And I guess, to his credit, he did get the second assist on the Tyler Myers goal. So he does have that in his stat line. But, he was battling with Trouba. That's fine. He got tangled up with Radko Gudas. I think this kind of felt like a game where he wanted to prove that he wasn't going to get pushed around. fine, but ultimately the puck is what does matter the most, and you got to go get it and do things with it. And I didn't think it was much of a night for Connor Garland. I didn't think it was much of a night for Dakota Joshua. He was awfully quiet in this hockey game, and the list goes on and on here. So back to this idea of who are their three best forwards. Like, I put that question out on social, and it was incredible the varying answers that I received in my timeline. But the through line through all of it was, I was like, okay, that trio, this trio. I'm looking through the answers, and I'm like, yeah, it'd be a good third line on just about, on like a real contender. And I think that more than anything kind of sums up where the Vancouver Canucks are with an invisible Elias Pettersson right now. Is even if you line up their three best forwards, these are not difference makers. They are not game changers, and we're seeing it on a nightly basis. This is now 19 of the last 20 games that they've been held to 3 goals or fewer. 19 of the last 20.
They don't even create anything either. Like, that's why I think it's so frustrating to watch the low shots in the first period, the even lower shots in the second period of games we're used to seeing. They go down, they go up 2-0, they sit back, and we laugh and joke about it. All right, it's Rick talking hockey now. They're going to let teams come at them, and then when the have a team as fast as the Anaheim Ducks, and the Anaheim Ducks aren't the Winnipeg Jets. They're not the Vegas Golden Knights. They're not a team that if the Canucks were to make the playoffs, who they would be going up against in the first round. Like, it's crazy to me to see and think that this team could be playoff bound with what they have to offer offensively and what they've shown us. Like, we do this show a lot, and we do these shows as to what was given in front of us. In this game against the Anaheim Ducks, they're going to get swept easily. This series will be over in 3 games against the Winnipeg Jets.
Getting some quotes from Rick Tocchet post-game. We'll try to get the video and hear from the coach in his own words, but said, little disappointed in the team. We just kind of gave in. Like, there's an element of truth there. He also said, we decided to abandon the game plan. I remember he said this just before Christmas as well when he was frustrated about his group. He said, we decided to abandon the game plan. We need some guys to rise to the occasion, whether that's a middle drive or going to the net. We had shots on net with nobody going to the net. Little disappointed in the grit part of our game, says Rick Tocchet. Not surprised to hear that from him. I don't disagree. I still think that may be something that this management group looks at ahead of the trade deadline. Not a significant deal, but if they have a way to bring in somebody with a little heft that plays with some edge, because outside of Kiefer Sherwood, like, Dakota Joshua's got size, but you'd like to see a little more snarl from him on the regular. Drew O'Connor's a big body, but I don't think he's out there looking to put guys in the fifth row. And then beyond that, it's a relatively easy group to play against. Like, Connor Garland's one of their smaller forwards. I'm not going to critique Connor Garland's effort most nights, but just in terms of, like, JT Miller's motor generally ran pretty hot, but he's not here anymore. This just doesn't look like a hard team to play against now. And then to your point, come playoff time, like, who's cranking up the intensity in the forward group for the Vancouver Canucks?
And are we all just going to watch and let Quinn Hughes get hit every single time he touches the puck and get shoved into the boards, get cross-checked in the back, let things happen to him every single night? Every team knows that they can do whatever they want with this Canucks team because no one's going to do anything.
Yeah.
I'm not saying go and fight. I'm saying show a little pushback.
Well, and I saw
show
some
that
people,
you care about each other, because right now they don't.
And people were upset. I saw some people on social that were upset. In that third period scrum that Kiefer Sherwood got involved, and really it was 5 Ducks on 2 Canuck players.
Yeah.
And again, like, you're down, game's getting away from you. Like, stand up for yourself and your teammates. And yeah, that just kind of felt like a bit of a fractured group in that moment. I don't want to go too deep on that one, but I did see some people pointing out that, again, this has been a knock on the Canucks for a while now. Let's get to the stat that stands out, because it's a presentation of the fine folks at Resurrection Spirits, and we introduced them to our broadcast last night. Now, in the grand scheme, the stat that stands out really doesn't mean an awful lot to the Vancouver Canucks, but they were going for the California sweep this season.
I know.
They were 5-0 after the overtime win across town at Crypto.com. Here they were playing a team below them in the standings, an opportunity to go 6-0 in the Golden State this year. It did not happen. The other part is that the Canucks had won 8 in a row against the Ducks prior to this one, but all good things must come to an end. And so that streak is over as well. But no sweep of Southern California this week, and ultimately no sweep of the 3 California teams on home ice, their home ice this season. Stat that stands out, a presentation of Resurrection Spirits. Told you about them. We'll be telling you about them a fair bit, so listen up. They're an East Vancouver company doing great things in the spirit space. And look, right now it seems more important than ever, you got to support local. So give Resurrection Spirits a try. They have partnered with our friends to come up with Sakaris and Price Gin. Yeah, those guys have their own gin right now. It's a limited batch. It's made in East Van. It's using BC ingredients. It's gin with character. It's designed for those who appreciate the art of true craftsmanship in every pour. And it gets better. Use code S&P for $5 off. Check it out at the Resurrection Spirits website, resurrectionspirits.ca. You can find their entire product line there. Easy to navigate website. Click on the dry gin tab and you'll see the Sakaris and Price offering there. Get it while you can, because once the bottles are gone, they are gone. It truly is a limited supply, and it is great to have Resurrection Spirits on board with us here at Rink Wide.
I need some gin to keep watching the games.
It does sort of feel like need some cocktails to keep this thing going here. Yeah, I mean, just the final numbers for Elias Pettersson on the night. No shots on goal, 2 attempts. 17 minutes and 4 seconds of ice time. So just another night. Just chalk it up here. Nothing happening for him. And again, you look at all this youth on the Anaheim Ducks, and they don't seem to shelter these guys. They've taken their lumps, but whether it's Mason McTavish, whether it's Leo Carlson, or whether it is a Cutter Goalie, they're playing them. They're putting them in positions to have some success here. It just feels like it is time to get Jonathan Lekkerimäki back up here. This team doesn't score many goals.
Ratu.
I'm prepared to go with Ratu as well. I don't know, just the same guys over and over. And I know that like Nils Amon and Archie Baines, neither of them played because the Canucks won 11-7. But I don't think, that can't be the plan long term to do the 11-7 thing. I think once they realize that Quinn Hughes is sort of as healthy as he's going to be, I understand the idea of protecting him a little bit. These first 2 games back-to-back nights. Now he'll have a night off, and you hope that he comes back and bounces back and is better on Saturday in Seattle than he was in this hockey game. And then they have a couple of days off that'll serve him well before the game on Wednesday against the Ducks. But I think at some point the plan will be to get back to the conventional 6 defensemen, 12 forwards, and when they do, I don't know. Baines and Oman, they're tweeners, and again, we're talking about guys that didn't even play, so I don't want to get too far off. We're losing the plot in that regard, but big picture here now, just kind of feels to me like it's time to give Jonathan Lekkerimäki another opportunity. And I'm with you. Archie Baines, Atu Ratu would be the other guy that I would bring back up and plug him in as well.
Yeah, I agree. And I also think that bigger picture with the trade deadline looming here next week, one player isn't going to come in and shake up this roster, make them that much better. I agree with you. Maybe they add someone with a little more toughness, with something like that helps a little bit. But the problem with the Canucks is so far beyond that. Like, they have their star players. Quinn Hughes, what you're getting out of him. Jake DeBrusk signed to a long-term contract. Elias Pettersson, Brock Besser, those are their guys. This is the core of this team, and they're not even producing. If you're going to make a franchise-altering trade and to do something, one of Brock Besser leaving, Elias Pettersson leaving, I know that's been thrown out there as well, or any other player, the makeup of this team is going to look so much different. So one player, whether you go and trade him, isn't going to change what you have right now. Those guys just have to figure it out within that room, right? And you can't keep looking for your defenseman who has 20-something more points than the next best forward for offense every single night. And I think that's the biggest problem when we sit here and talk about these games, Jeff, is they just watch Quinn Hughes, and they watch, like we all do. It's great. It's fun. They get a front row seat to it, but maybe sometimes try and help the guy out a little bit.
Yeah, it is strange that, we're almost at the 60-game mark for the Vancouver Canucks, and they don't seem to have figured out a way to channel the greatness of Quinn Hughes. You're right. It does feel like there's way too much deferring to him, way too much standing around and watching and expecting that he's going to be the guy that, sets the tone, gets them back in hockey games, whatever comes through in big moments. And Yeah, I mean, that gap is inexplicable. I mean, Connor Garland picks up another point, so he's now pulling away from the pack of forwards that were all tied at 35 points, Garland up to 37. Quinn Hughes did not figure in the scoring, so he remains on 60 points for this night. Myers and Suter, the only goals for the Vancouver Canucks. For Suter, his 15th of the season, gave the Canucks a 2-0 lead. It looked promising then. Doesn't look or feel promising now. That the game is over 5-2 the final, the Anaheim Ducks. So the Canucks and the Ducks have split their season series to this point. Anaheim will be in Vancouver twice, next Wednesday, and then a Saturday afternoon game in early April. All right, we're going to hear from Tyler Myers in a moment, but couple other people. Master Troll says, said it before, the post-game show in the chat more entertaining than the game itself. Yeah, you're not alone there. I've seen that.
Because we back each other up.
Seen that comment from a few people. Crazy123 says, this team seems to abandon the game plan a bit too often. Yeah, I think that's probably a fair critique as well. They probably surprised themselves with a 2-0 lead on consecutive nights because they're used to getting one and then trying to, milk that across the finish line. That didn't work for them in either Vegas or Utah over the weekend. So got to keep pushing. They have to find a way. 25 shots on goal. They had just 6 shots in the third period. Even with the third period, they're down 3-2 to start, and it stayed 3-2 until there was 5 minutes to go. And the Vancouver Canucks generated all of 6 shots in that third period, including with a power play. It is enough, and Rick Tocchet doesn't have any, but I've still got some. You just want to pull your hair out. How do you, in a 3-2 hockey game, how do you get 6 shots on goal in the third period? How come they don't have 16 shots in the third period?
It's because their offensive guys don't want to shoot the puck. It's simple as that, Jeff. They just don't shoot. The offensive guys have lost their offense. And they wait for their best player, which is a defenseman, to go and skate up the ice, go through the middle, try and beat 3 guys and shoot it and make the goalie make a save and rebound, and hey, maybe we'll get a goal. That's literally what they do.
No, you're right. And when you put it that way, that doesn't sound like much of a game plan. Certainly not a successful one. And I know that I said earlier that Elias Pettersson was all right in this hockey game. I've been corrected, and so I want to make sure that I'm abundantly clear here. The underlying numbers, with Elias Pettersson on the ice in 14 minutes of 5-on-5 ice time, the shot attempts were 15-4 for the Anaheim Ducks. Shots were 8-2. So the Vancouver Canucks generated 2 shots on goal at 5-on-5 with their nearly $12 million forward on the ice. He was on the ice for one of the goals against. So as we said, it wasn't like he got caved in the goal-scoring department, but an individual Corsi, team low. This is your highest-paid player, has the worst Corsi on the team at 21%. So just add it to a long and disappointing list. I watched some video online earlier. Somebody had put together a compilation of Elias Pettersson earlier in his career, and the first 4 or 5 highlights, you're just mesmerized by the speed and the tenacity and the accuracy and the velocity of the shot. And I'm watching this, and I've covered every game in his career. This is in my memory bank, but you see it again, and you just how is that possible that this is the same guy that we're seeing on a nightly basis? It just makes no sense. It really does feel like this is going to be a case study years from now about what happened to this guy, where did it go, and how come he wasn't able to get it back. Yeah,
it's unbelievable. We've waited for head coach. We had Tyler Myers, but let's hear from the head coach, Rick Tocchet, after the Canucks blow it in Anaheim.
It seemed like a solid start from your group, but what was missing in maybe that final 40?
Well, we had a game plan. They're a rush team. Got the 2-0 lead, and we had a 2-on-1. We didn't connect. I think we had a breakaway. A couple of missed opportunities, and then all of a sudden they had a rush game. And then we decided to forever abandon the game plan. And we need some guys to rise to the occasion. Whether that's a middle drive or go to the net. We had shots on net with nobody going to net. So a little disappointed in the grit part of our game.
So it was an execution thing more than anything with the game plan, not following.
Well, execution is how many times where I think Hughes had a couple opportunities. He shot the puck. We have guys stand on the side of the net. That doesn't win hockey. just a little bit disappointed in the team. I think we went a little. We kind of gave in.
Guys thought it was not over, but on its way to being over when it was 2-0.
I hope they don't think that way. I mean, the coaches aren't saying that. I mean, you got to be crazy to think that anything's over. You know, we're a desperate hockey team. You know, you can't. I don't care if it's 4-0. You know, you have to keep playing the game plan. And we just had too many guys that instead of going straight, went right or left. A little too much perimeter, for my liking.
Seemed like rush defense swung the game in the second period there.
Yeah.
Where did you need to be sharper as a group?
Well, we just talked about going into the third when they scored that third goal, how to defend that rush, and we defended it wrong. So you got to take the information, and when the pressure, you take information, and when the pressure hits you, then you apply that information. So we didn't tonight.
You can hear the frustration, and as he said, he doesn't escape some of the blame here. He is the coach. The buck has to stop with him. But in terms of the actual on-ice X's and O's and guys executing, and he refers to the 3-2 goal that turns out to be the game winner. And, of course, that is the Strome goal with 1 minute and 20 seconds to go. It comes right after that first Canucks power play that we talked about was a disaster. And if you go back and you watch the play, Teddy Bluger's out there with Drew O'Connor and Kiefer Sherwood. They're in deep. And they got caught below the puck, and then Troy Terry carries it through center ice. Bluger seems like he's in pretty good position on the back check. He's hustling back. McTavish stops up just inside the line. It's Tyler Myers on the near boards. Derek Forbort is the left side defenseman, but boy, he shades way over, too far over, and that allows Strome just to kind of, pop out of the weeds, and McTavish with the pass. And Strome with that wrist shot. And again, wrist shots shouldn't be beating National Hockey League goaltenders the way that they did. It wasn't a good night for Artur Silovs. But, the Ducks make it look simple. But, a veteran guy like Derek Forbort can't be shading that far over and leaving an entire half of the ice. And ultimately, it's a split-second read and reaction thing. But that's what happened there. And lead gets away. That turns out to be a game-winning goal.
The Canucks are in a fight for a playoff spot as it currently stands, and the head coach admits we're a desperate hockey team. They don't play like a desperate hockey team. They haven't played like a team that is fighting for a playoff spot. They haven't played for a team that is looking to go into the playoffs playing their best hockey. Right? We're entering March now here soon. March and April is where you want to be playing your best. This team has shown no signs of being able to get to a point where whatever their best hockey looks like is going to come. And that's not on one player, two players. That's everyone collectively. Yeah, there's Quinn Hughes, and that's great in the Kevin Lankinen story. You might get some saves, but they're not playing desperate hockey. You get up to a 2-0 lead, there is no killer instinct. I've said it before on this program. They don't have another gear to go to get 3, to get 4. Rick Tocchet talked about that, saying, I don't care if it's 3 or 4 goals. He would be happy, over the moon, if this team got to a 3 or 4 goal lead. But they can't do it. They take their foot off the pedal and they sit back. And that's just exactly what they do. There's no urgency. There's no awareness of how desperate they need to be in order of what can happen if they don't. Their season can be over in the second week of April, and that's it. No second game, no people chanting your names in Rogers Arena anymore and all of that. You're done. And until this team realizes that, they're going to keep playing this boring style of hockey.
And I guess I get where he's coming from. Rick Tocchet understands that the knives are out for Elias Pettersson. He doesn't name names, but when he says we need guys to rise to the occasion, you know exactly who he's talking about.
Yeah, but how can you know? I mean, it's so evident. It doesn't matter who he's not naming names, Jeff. Like, every single person knows. It starts with your highest paid player. No. Every single team in the National Hockey League. Connor McDavid's out there, hasn't had a point in 5 games. He's facing the media. He's asking questions, saying doesn't play well, doesn't do this, doesn't do that. Getting called out by his coach and things like that. When Austin Matthews doesn't play well, it's front page news. When you look at guys in other teams, it is front page news. It starts with your best players. Quinn Hughes takes a lot of it, but he is playing well. Your second best player on that team is Elias Pettersson. So he's got it. It doesn't matter. Everyone people say pile on and this, that, and the other. It automatically goes there because of how much he gets paid, because of the contract that he signs, and because of what he's shown. He's a 102-point player in this National Hockey League. and he's disappeared.
Yeah, milk carton time. It's been that way for a while. We know that. I'm sure it was frustrating for people that were watching the game at Greta Bar. I hope it didn't take away from the experience. I'm sure it did. Terrific place to watch any kind of sporting event. I'm sure it'll be bumping on Saturday, a big Saturday night hockey night, back end of the hockey night doubleheader, the Canucks and the Kraken, the I-5 matchup. If you're looking for a place to watch Canucks hockey, think about Greta Bar. They got the drink specials. They got the street food menu, all the arcade games. A ton of fun, great vibe. Greta Bar, the place to be, 50 West Cordova. Greta Bar, let the games begin. I think you and I both agreed that we were pleased, at the very least, I don't know if that's the right word, that the game continued for Filip Chytil, because I think his life probably flashed before his eyes when his former teammate, Jacob Trouba, a guy with a reputation for big hits, sometimes crossing the line, he looked like he had Chytil lined up there in the third period, and fortunately Chytil was able to sidestep him, and that's the fear with Chytil, right? That he's had head injury issues in the past, and you just don't want to see him get absolutely crushed. And Jacob Trouba's a guy that can do it, and I don't know if they were buddies in New York, but they were on opposite sides tonight. That was a close call. I kind of covered my eyes briefly.
Yeah.
I didn't want to see that one go down.
No, absolutely not. Neither did Filip Chytil. And look, I mean, in all seriousness, Filip Chytil's had concussion history, so you hope you when you see someone miss a hit like that, you kind of are okay with it, especially with what we know of Filip Chytil and his injury. But yeah, former teammate, an interesting one there as well this season, as well. So yeah, I mean, look, Jacob Trouba likes hitting people. He hits people hard, and that's exactly what he's going to do. The Canucks need someone that's going to hit someone hard.
Yeah, this wasn't a big hitting night.
No.
Canucks out hit the Ducks 16-14. Radko Gudas, no surprise there. He led all Ducks with 5 hits, and Kiefer Sherwood does what Kiefer Sherwood does, although by his count, a low hit total night with 5 as well. I didn't think it was a great night for Chytil.
Nope.
Thought he had some moments last night, the chance in the blue paint there in the dying seconds that could have won it for the Canucks in regulation. But for whatever reason, in a game that turned into a bit of a track meet, you wanted to think that could be the Canucks' counterpunch, was that a guy like Chytil might be able to, if the Ducks are going to race up ice and try to have numbers, maybe the Canucks could counter and catch them. Just really didn't happen an awful lot. And we did talk about the one chance that he had when he kind of darted to the middle on the backhand at 3-2. That was, I think, his best look of the night. But when I look at Chytil, 16 and a half minutes on the ice for 3 of the 5 Ducks goals, just 2 shots on goal for him, and 9-9 in the face-off circle. So fairly pedestrian night for Filip Chytil, who was good last night in Los Angeles, but everybody across the board had to be better in this one on the pond in Anaheim. All right, trade deadline, we said 2 games away for the Vancouver Canucks is coming your way on March the 7th. The daily face-off's going to be all over it. They've got the trade deadline special coming your way. Check it out on digital. If you're, wherever you're going, take Daily Face-Off with you this time at the trade deadline. From about 8 o'clock in the morning till 1 o'clock, really till the dust settles. It'll be a morning of nonstop content. The DFO Live team is going to be on top of all the breaking news, every single move, and there will be transactions. We'll see if they involve the Canucks, but instant reaction, expert analysis, all the behind-the-scenes drama of the biggest deals of the day. Tune in to Daily Face-Off's YouTube channel and follow Daily Face-Off on socials as well in the days leading into the deadline, then, of course, on March the 7th. All right, it was a busy night around the National Hockey League. Canucks got a little bit of help on the out-of-town scoreboard from a couple of the games. Didn't go the way that they want, but ultimately it's the Canucks that have to help themselves. And with 1 win now in 4 games out of the Four Nations break, road trip wraps up in Seattle on Saturday. Again, kind of feels like it did heading into the game in Los Angeles last night. Like they need those points against the Seattle Kraken. If they come home 1-4, getting your captain back, that should be a boost. It was last night, but it certainly wasn't in this one. So, again, if the Canucks think that they're going to be a playoff team, all these games are high stakes. And the Kraken, we'll talk about them a little bit more, but that's next up for the Vancouver Canucks on Saturday, 7 o'clock. And then, of course, we'll have Rink Wide afterwards. I know you're off on Saturday. Farhan will be in helping me out here. But where are we going with our line of the night? What do you have your eyes set on as we turn our attention to the Bet365 line of the night?
I was halfway there tonight. This portion of the show is brought to you by Bet365, proud partner of Sekerson Price. Canucks Conversation, Jeff, you and I here at Rink Wide Vancouver. Open an account with Bet365 today, but on a huge range of markets, use code NATION. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Got a little something for the chat here for my bet. So we're going to go same game parlay. I like a Marner assist and the Leafs to win. We'll just leave that there. McKinnon to score a goal, because that's all he's been doing.
Yep.
Money line on the Colorado Avalanche against the Minnesota Wild, who are getting thumped by absolutely everybody right now with all the injuries, just decimated by injuries right now. And I like the Stars over the LA Kings. So those three together, it's some pretty good odds there for a little parlay if you want.
All right. Well, we will be keeping our eye on that, as we'll be keeping our eye. After back-to-backs, it's going to be a full day off on Friday for the Vancouver Canucks. Getting closer to home, but not there yet. One stop to go on this road trip. We'll see if there are any roster moves. We talked about some of the potential options for the Vancouver Canucks, and we'll see if they elect to make any changes there. But we'll probably have to wait until morning skate on Saturday at Climate Pledge to get a better sense. They'll go back to Kevin Lankinen for sure. It's been really quiet on the Thatcher Demko front. I don't think Rick Tocchet's been asked about Thatcher Demko. The Canucks said he'd be reevaluated after the road trip, so... I think now the way the games are spaced out for a little bit, and after this performance by Artur Silovs, we're probably in line for a few Lankinen starts in a row starting on Saturday night.
I don't think he skated much.
Demko?
Yeah. I think that this one's going to be interesting to monitor. Of all the injuries he's had, I know that there's a lot, but this is the one where we're going to look at it and say, like, how many games does he play the rest of the way here? It's desperate hockey.
Yep.
It's need to win games every single night. If
Lankinen gives them that chance.
Yep, and that's another thing, right? You're also playing against teams that are trying to get their best hockey heading into the postseason. And, can you really count on a guy like Thatcher Demko with what we know just this season, not what he has done in his whole career, what we know about him this season? Or can you really count on him that much? So it's going to be interesting to see how many games he plays this season, because I'm not entirely sure it's going to be a lot.
Well, the Canucks have a couple more back-to-backs here in the first 2 weeks of March, and conventional wisdom generally is that you split the way they've done them here, but I mean, the further they go down the stretch, the higher the stakes. I just wonder if they're going to have to lean on Kevin Lankinen in some of those situations. One of them's at home. One is a home game and a game the next night in Calgary. I mean, that's a high-stakes game. That might be the biggest game that the Canucks have left on their schedule, is in Calgary. Do they work their goaltending so that Lankinen's available for that one? Front end with a backup, whether it's Demko ready or who knows. The other set of back-to-backs is Chicago, and then it's Utah. And again, the Utah game is going to be significant to the Vancouver Canucks. So just keep that in mind that in the next 8 games or whatever it is, there are still 2 more sets of back-to-backs coming down the pipe for the Vancouver Canucks.
Well, that, and I mean, look, let's face it, Jeff, if the goalies can get some help from the offense in any of these games, then, it makes life a lot easier if you're Rick Tocchet and the goaltending coach for the Vancouver Canucks to try and figure things out. Like 3-4 goals, you gives your goalie some cushion there, but if you're battling for everything every single night in these tightly contested hockey games, and you're seeing other teams flying down and getting creating chances left, right, and center, then you know what, your goalies are going to be taxed.
Well, again, when you look at the standings, just based on the standings themselves, the game in Seattle should be winnable for the Vancouver Canucks. Kraken have lost 2 in a row. They have 3 wins in their last 10 hockey games. They are 28th in the overall standings. I don't know if people have been paying attention to Seattle. It's a lost season down the I-5. But, you look at the standings and you say, hey, the Canucks are significantly ahead of Anaheim. This one should have been easy. We talked about the fact that the Ducks have been, since the middle of December, they've actually been better than the Vancouver Canucks. The Kraken, not so much. And you look at some of the reasons why they've struggled. Jared McCann leads the team with 43 points. Chandler Stevenson, in his first year there, he has 40. Kraken have 9 double-digit goal scorers. That surprised me when I looked at it, but their leading goal scorer is Jaden Swartz, and he's got 19. So they don't have a 20-goal scorer on the roster. Shane Wright's starting to come into his own. In fact, he leads the team in scoring since the 1st of December. So a
good for
20-year-old,
him.
he obviously high draft pick, They're counting on him, and it looks like he's starting to arrive at the National Hockey League level. It'll be a Ranger reunion. Capo Caco picked up just before Christmas, and obviously Philip Hedl now. Maybe Victor Mancini gets in, although hasn't played the last couple of games here. Again, some of the reasons for the Kraken's problems: penalty kill since Christmas, sub 70%. We'll see if Canucks can make them pay on that one. It's funny, I checked in with Ian Furness, a longtime friend who is part of the Kraken broadcast on television down there. I just sent him a text earlier today, and I said, give me some sort of, behind-the-scenes reasons why. I can look at the standings and whatever and scoring, but, why are the Kraken as bad as they are? Ian said, and I didn't know this, Kraken are 0-9 in the second games of back-to-backs this season. So the Canucks are 1-6 now.
Yeah, they're not much better.
Terrible.
Yeah.
But the Kraken are 0-9. Ian points out the league record is 0-12. So, and the Kraken have a few more back-to-backs before all is said and done. The power play is 25th in the league. Shane Wright's got 6 power play goals. Nobody else has more than 4. So they're not getting it done. And then Ian said the other thing is Joey Decord gives them a chance, but Decord has 20 of the team's 25 wins. So Philip Grubauer's played himself out of the NHL. He's not even their backup right now. And I would guess that they haven't played since Tuesday, so they'll be rested. Canucks will be playing 3 and 4 at the end of a road trip. That'll be a part of the challenge there, but I would think with the days off for Seattle that Joey Decord will get the start in goal on Saturday. And you may recall that the 2 games the Canucks have played against the Kraken in that first week out of the Christmas break, 2 of the more eventful games for Vancouver. They had the 4-1 lead with 5 minutes to go that got away, and Vince Dunn scored in overtime. That was a crazy afternoon. And then down in Seattle, Thatcher Demko, back spasms, takes himself out of the hockey game. Canucks had a 3-1 lead. Kraken scored a couple of late goals in the third. He thought, oh man, not again. And the Canucks were able to pull out a shootout victory, 4-3, their only shootout win of the year. But we didn't really get to this at any point, I don't think, because I know you were looking at the number of 2-goal leads that the Canucks had squandered this season, and certainly both of those games against Seattle, the last night game in Los Angeles, this one against Anaheim, it's happened way too often.
Yeah, 6th time they've lost a 2-goal lead this season. 7th time they've had a 2-goal lead and lost it. Right. They won, that was home opener, they won it.
Well, no, they lost.
They lost to Calgary. Lost to Calgary.
It was the game
against Seattle. Yes, yeah, that's
so
exactly
7 times now the Canucks have had a multi-goal lead, and on 6 occasions it got away entirely. They were able to salvage the 1 win in Seattle early in the new year. What'd
you say? It was a game. You should have the game, or it's a should-win game.
Yeah, I mean, yes.
They haven't proven that. I don't think they have that respect yet.
I think that's fair. I do think based on the evidence presented, you can't look at the Vancouver Canucks and say any game's a should-win game. But I mean, the Kraken have nothing to play for. A lot of talk swirling around Jared McCann, some of the other pieces there as well. It would only make sense if they were active on the trade front. They're not going anywhere this year, so we'll see what happens. And then, obviously, with the Vancouver Canucks, every day that goes by here is a day closer to that trade deadline. Tomorrow is 1 week away from the deadline. So, getting down to crunch time. I know we talked a little bit about Brock on the program last night.
Yeah, I mean, look, very quickly, I think that there's been some talk about Elias Pettersson. I know that there was reports out there suggesting that they've taken him completely off the market. I don't think that someone is completely off the market if another team calls about a player. I really believe that the Canucks can't even make a call with another GM right now because of the way that Elias Pettersson's been playing. And I think that until he starts to play better, if he miraculously finds his game here in the next week, maybe there's an NHL GM that calls and says, okay, let's try and make something work here. But this could be something, if it does happen, moves into the summer around the draft. Let's remember his no trade clause kicks in on July 1st. This is the next big domino when you look at this team in total that would probably be moved if they were going to make a monumental size deal. But I don't think for a second that, everything is quiet around Elias Pettersson right now. I think that, the Canucks desperately need him to play better, and then maybe conversations can start to pick up a little bit more.
I just find it so hard, based on his current form, and really his current form of the last year, that there's a contender out there that thinks, that's the guy that we need. Let's go make that happen. And if it's not a contender, I think you would have to ask, like, why would you want to make the deal now as opposed to the summer? Like, even though we're 3/4 of the way through the season, 3/4 of $11.6 million, like, just let this first year run out entirely. Like, why would you want to absorb what's left of this if you can make the deal in the offseason when 1 year is burnt off? I just think if you're, the Buffalo Sabres or some other team, there's no urgency to make that trade now unless you think that somebody else is going to swoop in and grab him. But I
can't tell you how many players, agents, and people that I've talked to around the National Hockey League over this last season have come and or at least said something. What's wrong with this guy? What has happened? How did it get this way? They gave him everything he wanted. They got rid of the guy he didn't like. It's set up for him to succeed, and still there's nothing there. So when you look at other GMs around the National Hockey League, you don't think scouts talk, you don't think agents talk, you don't think that players from one locker room are talking to guys in the other locker room and they're getting, advice, or coaches or GMs are talking to players that have played here before about a player. Like, it's not a small deal. You're taking a contract that's $11.6 million for the next 7 years. Like, that's a lot of money for an owner and for a team. So due diligence is definitely being done. There are a lot of people asking a lot of questions about this player. It amplified a little bit in Four Nations when he was with his countrymen, for sure, because I think that there was people in that room that didn't know what was going on either and didn't really think that, someone who has had so much success has fallen off so largely. But his play at Four Nations, obviously, was that. He was a low ice time guy in Sweden's final game. So, look, as much as people say that we sit here and we pile on and we pile on and pile on, we do this show with the facts that are given us every single night. Like you said right off the top, Jeff, and when we started this thing, and more nights than not, this guy just hasn't been good.
Yeah, for those of you keeping track at home now, that's 13 straight games without a goal. Got to go back to January 21st at home against Buffalo. Next time he steps on NHL ice for game action, it'll be March, the month of March. And he hasn't scored a goal since January 21st. I know the league shut down for 2 weeks, but 13 without a goal for Elias Pettersson. It's mind-boggling stuff. But again, not all that surprising given what we've seen over the last 12 months. A really frustrating night. We felt it in the chat. We appreciate everybody and their contributions to the program. We do it for you, so we're delighted that you're hanging around through the lean times as well. Again, we do it after each and every Vancouver Canucks game. Murph, I know that you're off on Saturday, but we'll catch up with you next week as we get a little closer to the trade deadline. Farhan will be with me on Saturday. But that is it. I think we have said everything that we have to say about a 5-2 loss to the Anaheim Ducks. Frustrating, disappointing. You name it. It was there over the final 40 minutes for the Vancouver Canucks, who watched the Ducks score 5 unanswered goals in a 5-2 victory. We've got Jacob Lazar working hard behind the scenes. Double duty for him with Canucks Convo as well. Before we run, though, I should mention, check out Canucks Army if you don't already for all the latest on the hockey club, all sorts of content around the Vancouver Canucks. Quadrelli will have his instant reaction up already, and then all of the usual post-game features as we roll into the weekend here. So add Canucks Army to your favorites and your bookmarks. If you're looking for Canucks content, a lot of it at the Canucks Army site. All right, that is going to do it for us. 5-2 the final score on to Seattle for the Vancouver Canucks, and that's when we'll have our next Rink Wide for you on Saturday. We'll be here in studio. They'll be down there across the border, down the I-5 at Climate Pledge Arena. For Irf, I'm Jeff. Thanks so much for checking out another edition of Rink Wide Vancouver.